At 2:11 a.m., a red dot blinked in the dark and taught me a new way to breathe. The nursery was a small blue world, sound machine whispering rain, nightlight low as a secret, my daughter's damp curls pressed to my shoulder. I rocked in the chair we found on Craigslist, the one that creaks like a memory every seventh sway. Her bottle tapped my wedding ring, a soft glassy heartbeat. Outside, the city exhaled a truck and then forgot us. Blink. I thought it was the monitor across the hall, the one that alerts for smoke or carbon, that faithful little narc. But the blink was wrong. It wasn't the fat, responsible blink of a safety device. It was a pinprick, steady, the color of a cherry lifesaver held behind your teeth. I scanned the room, mobile, bookshelf, framed print of a moonlit rabbit, and there it was, back among the bored books I keep promising to read when she has more neck, a small black eye pretending to be a toy. The chair creaked its seventh sway. I didn't stand. I didn't jolt. My daughter sighed, satisfied, and I matched her breath how the nurse taught me, in through the nose like you're smelling cookies, out through the mouth like you're cooling tea. I thought of my mother-in-law's voice from earlier in the week, she slept so well today. I watched her nap for an hour. It had scraped me then, it sanded me now. The dot blinked again, smug as a metronome. I covered it with my palm the way you cover a candle to show a child where the light goes. The room deepened. The sound machine kept making rain. I waited, hand hovering, then lifted my palm and watched the red return, patient, unembarrassed.
I could have woken Caleb. I could have marched down the hall with a lamp like a detective and yanked that thing from the shelf, held it aloft like a captured moth, and asked, "What is this?" I could have texted his mother right now and put my anger in a message that would read like a siren. I could have staged a scream that would bounce off the picture frames and call it self-justice. Instead, I rocked. On the ninth sway, I reached for the phone in my cardigan pocket and opened the camera without letting the screen wake the room. I took a picture of the lens in place, with the stuffed giraffe, with the rabbit print, with the time at the top of my screen for anyone who might one day need proof that proof can be quiet. I zoomed to catch the brand name, then the serial number etched in a gray so faint it almost asked to be ignored. I took another shot with my finger pointing to so the photo would explain itself later without my voice. My daughter's bottle went empty. She made that milk-drunk hum that sounds like a person agreeing with you in her sleep. I burped her, patted her back, and laid her down, warm and heavy and unaware of the eye on her bookshelf. I tucked the swaddle and pressed 2 fingers to her chest just to feel the tiny drum that makes me who I am. Blink. I stood finally, slow as a decision. I didn't touch the device. I moved the board book an inch to the left so tomorrow's photos would show it hadn't moved. I traced the cord where it disappeared behind the shelf to confirm what I already knew. This wasn't battery. This was plugged in on purpose. I followed the cord to the outlet that used to hold a nightlight and now held a brick marked with a logo I'd seen in one of my mother-in-law's shopping emails, the kind she forwards with, "Look. Safety." I took 3 more photos, each one a sentence. Then I opened Notes and typed a title without trembling, Privacy Incident, Nursery. 2:11 a.m. First line, observed small camera with red LED on nursery bookshelf, child present, device appears powered via wall adapter, no prior consent. The words were dry and decent. They steadied me like a handrail. I turned the sound machine up 1 notch, the way you do when you're about to open the door and let the hallway in. I looked once more at the cheap little eye that thought it knew what a home is. "Good night," I whispered to it, calm as a librarian. "We'll speak in the morning." To understand that red, you have to know how quiet our life looks from the outside. If you walked past our window on any given weekday, you'd see a small family doing the small things faithfully, coffee at 6:30, stroller by 7:20, daycare at 7:45 if the train plays nice. You'd think they've got a rhythm. And we do. Rhythms are what you build when you don't want to live by alarms. Our apartment faces east, which means morning comes with opinions. The light breaks over the brick across the courtyard, bounces once, and lands on our kitchen table like a teacher's hand on a desk, firm, present, insisting on attendance. I lean into the window for 2 inches of fresh air and the sound of a neighborhood waking up, a bus inhaling at the corner, Mr. Ortiz's keys like a small wind chime on the staircase, Claire's laugh ricocheting down the hall when she calls her dog back from making friends with everyone's ankles. I keep the counter clean because I like the way butter looks when it has elbow room. I keep a notepad on a magnet by the fridge with 5 standing lines: milk, wipes, diapers, coffee, lemons, because if lemons are missing my day sours more than it should. I keep the bassinet in the nursery even though the baby has graduated to a crib, because I like the ghost of how small she was. I keep our life in these little habits because little things are what I can control without scaring anyone. Caleb moves slower in the morning than I do. His body is still learning how to be 2 people's home. He stands at the sink murmuring good mornings to our daughter in a voice made of cocoa and caution. He tests the bottle's warmth on the inside of his wrist like an oath. He does the trash, the dishes, the first diaper of the day, and the random drawer things nobody else will ever sort: twist ties, orphaned Allen wrenches, 2 dimes, lint that looks like it might be useful if you squint. Train says it's feeling generous, he tells me, checking the app. He's always hoping public transit will be a friend today. He wears the blue shirt that means meetings and the tan jacket that means he might stop for peaches if the fruit stand lies open like forgiveness. I pack the daycare bag like a small, ethical crime, everything labeled, nothing sticky, the wipes stacked as neatly as bills. 2 outfits zip into a mesh pouch, tiny thighs of leggings folded like secrets. I tuck in her lovey rabbit, gray from affection, and the pacifier we always pretend we won't use but always do at 3:11 p.m. I check her crib camera, the one we chose, installed, and named Rabbit Ear for its antenna, and watch the green bars of motion settle to still. The app is boring, and boring is the only mood I want from something that looks at my child when I'm not in the room. Daycare lives 4 blocks away and feels like a parent's version of church, the same figures at the door, the same rituals, the same exchange of lives and trust. Ms. Joy stands there with her clipboard and her soft sneakers, hair wrapped up in a scarf that changes color with her patience. "Morning, little moon," she says, kissing the air near my daughter's forehead because she treats parents' boundaries like actual fences. She points to the whiteboard. Today's craft is autumn leaves glued to everything, snack is apple slices, nap at 12:30. "You doing okay, Mama?" she asks me in the tone that gives room for a lie and hopes for a truth. "I slept," I say, which is not the same as I'm rested but will do. She squeezes my hand in a way that transfers steadiness like a battery charger. Sandra likes to arrive here sometimes without arriving. She sends me links from the sidewalk. Top 10 safety cameras for modern moms. The shocking truth about daycare naps. The triple exclamation is always part of the genre. New smart plug, prevents SIDS. She uses safety as a spear and a blanket, a word so big you feel mean declining it. In person, she is the 6th sense in my kitchen, the neat hands that straighten a towel I just used, the voice that says, "Do you want me to?" and then, without waiting, does. In her mind, helpfulness is a sprint. If she reaches the finish line first, she wins your relief. In mine, helpfulness is a permission slip, a signature you ask for before you show up. We let her in because she's family and because sometimes she actually saves us. When I went back to work and the baby came home with her first daycare cold, Sandra sat on our couch and did the exquisite quiet task of being a body that isn't asking for anything. She rocked, she hummed, she warmed soup, she wiped my counter without announcing the cleaners she prefers. But she also rearranged the nursery bookshelf for feng shui, and set up an extra nightlight because darkness causes nightmares, and forwarded me a sale link for a second monitor so we can both see the baby from our phones. "That's not how it works," I told her once, tying a clean sheet on the crib while she folded swaddles to the exact size of a salute. "We doesn't include the camera." She smiled like I had performed a cute joke. "I just want to help you rest," she said, and handed me a neatly rolled burp cloth like evidence. The first time she used "we" to describe a nap, I wrote it off as the grammar of grandmothers. The second time, it felt like a crowded room. The third time, it scraped something inside me I wasn't ready to bleed about. Caleb navigates his mother with the particular courage of a son who knows both her kindness and her entropy. He calls her on Tuesdays, just after lunch, because he has learned that bad news travels faster when his voice isn't the first to deliver it. He reminds her of the rules and sentences that make sense if you stand on your head. "We need you," when we call. He says, "Text first," as if the phone is a doorbell. He says, "No surprises," and then brings her a bouquet of those cheap daisies that look like small suns because love should taste good even when the vegetables are the point. At night, if we're lucky, we sit on the couch and pretend we still know the show we started 3 weeks ago. The baby monitors us with the same patience we give the monitor. The ceiling fan speaks on behalf of weather. I file something because filing calms me: insurance card PDFs, the new lease addendum, the daycare calendar with the closing day circled like a warning and a gift. Caleb washes 2 bowls like a man who has learned the prayer of circular motions. We read each other tweets aloud from people who think they invented our day. We say bed like it's a dare. Sandra brings gifts that vibrate with purpose. There was the motion-sensing bassinet that promised to rock the baby like 1,000 nannies and then woke her up every time it sighed. There was the smart plug we unplugged, the sleep soother night light shaped like a bear that roared a lullaby so earnestly it frightened the child, the door alarm that announced door open every time you breathed near it. Each item came with the kind of receipt you frame, 30 days and no questions, and each one arrived with a line of commentary that sounded like salvation and landed like a grade. She also brought real help. She found us a used changing table that fit our odd wall. She hemmed the curtains I kept threatening to hem. She sat in the pediatrician's waiting room with me while I filled out forms that wanted to know the name I had before this name, the allergies I pretended not to have, the date my daughter will one day have to memorize as hers. She is not a caricature. But she is a force, and forces don't always know the difference between wind at your back and a storm at your door. Daycare days taste like routine and tiny victories. I love the clipboard at pickup listing what the babies did that day, even when the verbs are humble: rolled, reached, gnawed, and napped. Sometimes the verb is a gift: laughed. Sometimes it's a warning spelled in sugar: clingy. Ms. Joy writes notes with smiley faces that feel like a friend remembering your coffee order. When I sign Nora out, Ms. Joy always says, "She did her best today," which is the sentence I wish someone had tattooed on my heart at 19. The building is steady under our feet. Mr. Huang is the landlord who answers emails like a human on purpose. Mr. Ortiz fixes what breaks and tells you before he knocks. Claire is the neighbor who leaves a bag of hand-me-down books at our door with a post-it that says these ones don't have bite marks. We are held by good bricks and better people. So when something is off, when a red dot blinks where no lens should live, when a comment slides an inch into the uncanny, you feel it the way a choir feels an off note. Everything else might be in tune, but the wrong note colors the air. Evening is when the friction shows up wearing helpful clothes. Sandra texts, "I'll pop by with dinner," and I reply, "We'd love dinner Friday, 7:15. She shows up Thursday at 6 o'clock with bags full of groceries you have to cook now or watch wilt. I stand at the stove making a meal I didn't plan for and let the smell of garlic remind me I like being a person who knows what to do with a pan. She rearranges the spice rack so you can find the cumin. I find a cumin I didn't know we owned and a patience I didn't know I had. Caleb sets the table in the way that says, "We're choosing gratitude," and I decide to practice it like a language I can one day speak without translating. When she leaves, she wipes the counter in slow circles, the choreography of ownership, and I re-wipe faster, the choreography of taking my kitchen back. We are both making a home, we just disagree on whose home it is. The stroller squeaks on the third block because the right front wheel wants oil and I keep forgetting to remember. The elevator card reader beeps in the voice of a robot that respects you. The mail slot sometimes spits the neighbor's coupons into our basket, and I walk them back because respect starts with other people's pizza deals. Our hallway smells like detergent and someone's curry and a new dog practicing his bark. I love all of it. I love being a person who can draw a map from the front steps to the crib in the dark. We have a family calendar that lives on the fridge like a roommate. There are 3 colors of marker: blue for Caleb, green for me, gold for maybe don't ruin this day. There is a habit tracker for water, walk, text mom, and a column called Ask Before Adding. Sandra has learned to text, "May I put choir night on your calendar?" And I have learned to write back, "Yes, Thursday only, 6:38 with a little heart because limits land softer when you put something kind beside them. I teach 7th graders, which means my day is a chorus of why and no and what if and when will we use this and can we have 5 more minutes. It makes me good at writing sentences that hold. It makes me generous with apologies that arrive on time. It makes me understand that people need rules they don't have to renegotiate every afternoon. It also makes me sleep like a person who has stood all day, which is its own kind of mercy. Caleb works in project management for a company that builds other people's showrooms. He speaks fluent contractor and client, which means he's always translating need into schedule and budget into compromise. He comes home with a face that says, "I did not burn anything down today." He needs quiet the way some people need applause. I am learning to give him the first without resenting the second. Nora is the hinge our days swing on. She is soft and certain, stubborn and sincere. She laughs with her whole face like the joke surprised her. She naps when Ms. Joy says down as if the word is a promise. She chews on everything I love and makes it better. She is the reason I have learned to tuck my anger into words that don't scare anyone. She is also the reason the words matter so very much. Before the night of the red, this was our balance: gratitude with grit, help with footnotes, patience with a calendar. The dot didn't arrive in a vacuum, it blinked into a room already negotiating the terms of love. It blinked into a life where a woman had learned to whisper no kindly and often, and a grandmother had learned to hear it as not yet, and a husband had learned to be the hallway between 2 rooms that deserve light. If you'd stopped by at 5 p.m. any afternoon that week, you would have found me at the stove, stirring a simple sauce while one hip rocked the baby's seat with a patience that makes you look like you're praying. You would have heard a podcast about something gentle, plant care, maybe, and seen Sandra's latest helpful gift on the counter, still in the box, promising to revolutionize nap time. You would have smelled onions going from honest to sweet. You would have thought, this house is fine. From the street, it is. Inside, it is. Even with the dot, it is. The truth is, most homes are both fine and almost. The red light didn't change that. It just chose a side. Before the red dot blinked, the breadcrumbs were already on the floor. I had stepped over them out of politeness, the way you step over someone else's shoes in your hallway because taking offense would take too much energy. The first crumb was a sentence that didn't fit in its room. 3 weeks earlier, a Wednesday, pick up at daycare. Ms. Joy handed me the clipboard and the small report card of our baby's day: 2 naps, 1 long, 1 short, pear puree, laughed at Bubbles. At the bottom, in Ms. Joy's looping hand, rolled from side to tummy, assisted. My heart did that small parade you throw for a minor holiday. Assisted, I said aloud, savoring the consonants. We're close. Driving home, my phone chimed in the cup holder with Sandra's voice message. She rolled over today. Completely on her own. I was so proud of her I cried. The message had the shine of a thing you want to be true. I rewound it at the stoplight, listened again, on her own. The daycare note tapped my pocket with its different story. Maybe they tried later and she made it. Maybe Sandra meant last week. Maybe. I put both truths in my bag and let them argue while I cooked. That night, while I tucked our daughter into the bassinet we still hadn't retired to storage, I found the second crumb. The outlet nightlight I kept just for middle-of-the-night diaper changes was gone, replaced with a glossy white wall adapter that wasn't ours, a little cube with a logo I recognized from one of Sandra's forwarded deals. It keeps your devices safe, she had written about the smart plug on sale. The adapter was perfect, seamless, helpful. It was also not what I had left there that morning. Did you swap the nightlight? I asked Caleb, passing him in the hall with laundry that smelled like warm cotton and detergent that cost more than it should. He frowned. No. Mom came by around noon. She brought soup. Maybe he didn't finish, because the end of the sentence would have been, maybe she changed something that wasn't hers to change. He scratched his jaw and offered me a peach slice like a peace treaty. I'll ask her. We did the dance we always do when help arrives dressed as a surprise. We put the adapter on my ask about list. Then the baby woke and we were people again, not attorneys. The third crumb arrived in a brown box with a smile on it because all boxes smile now. The label said Sandra Carter and our address. The return address said Luma Home, a brand name that hums confidence. I set the box on the console, texted her a photo, package for you at ours. Want us to bring it by? She called immediately, effusive. That's for you, she sang. A little extra monitor, so when she naps you can watch her from the living room without checking your phone. I saw the cutest TikTok. We have a monitor, I said gently. And I like to check my phone. It's different, she insisted. This one learns her patterns. It learns, I thought, staring at the tape I didn't cut. That's the verb that sounds like a gift and sometimes sits on your lap like a cat you didn't invite. Thank you, I said, and put the box on a shelf to breathe. We ate dinner on TV trays because the table felt like a courtroom. On Saturday, crumb 4, Sandra asked for the Wi-Fi password again, even though I had written it on a card and stuck it inside the cookbooks where she could find it without making me complicit. The new recipe videos aren't loading, she said, standing 2 inches inside our kitchen like an overtime coach. Your signal drops in the nursery. You know that, right? She tilted her head, testing. I could get you a signal booster, tiny, cute, on sale. We're good, I said, too cheerfully. I wanted to say, the word booster next to nursery makes my teeth itch. I handed her the card anyway because some fights cost more than routers. Sunday afternoon, crumb 5. I came home with the baby asleep on my shoulder, the good kind of heavy that makes your back forgive your day. The step stool was out, stationed in the hallway like it had been used and then put down by a person who doesn't fit in your rhythms. The bookshelf in the nursery wore a new intention, board books shuffled, a bunny moved from left to right, a tiny framed print of a rabbit moon slightly off level in the way that tells you a human hand has been here and left too soon. None of it was criminal. All of it was a language. I tightened the curtain rod, Sandra announced later like a woman awarding herself a ribbon. That's why the stool was out. It was barely hanging on. Thank you, I said, meaning it and something else. I lifted the stool with the foot of a person not interested in a conversation but still committed to getting to the other side of her hallway. Monday, crumb 6, an email hit our shared inbox. Welcome to Luma Home. Set up your camera in minutes. The greeting used Caleb's name because family often uses the path of least password resistance. He forwarded it to me with a shrug emoji. I stared at the green Get Started button and the part of my brain that alphabetizes things sat up straight. We had not bought a Luma anything. Someone had. And the system believed our family did because the person who installed it used our email. Mom probably used my address when she ordered it for herself, Caleb said, trying on the optimistic take like a sweater last year's you could almost still wear. I'll ask. Before he could, Crumb 7, Claire caught me at the mailboxes with a smile that meant gossip and a purse that meant errand. Your mother-in-law is a machine, she laughed. I saw her on a step stool through your window yesterday afternoon lining up the baby books like they were real estate. Wanted to knock and offer a bubble level. Yesterday afternoon? I asked lightly, unlocking our box. We were at the park. She's speedy, Claire said, kind. She had one of those little gadget screwdriver kits. Pink handle. Very cute, very threatening. I laughed because laughter keeps the hallway friendly. She likes projects, I said, and put a credit card offer addressed to a college resident into the recycling because I enjoy small, righteous acts. Crumb 8 didn't look like a crumb. It looked like a question that arrived wrapped in politeness. Sandra texted what time did she nap today? I love watching her little chest go up and down. The up and down had a cadence that sounded like she had been counting. I sent a photo of the daycare whiteboard, 12:30 to 2:10. She replied, yes, that's what I saw. I reminded myself that she might mean, that's what I saw on your photo, and not, that's what I saw with my eyes on a screen. My chest did its own tiny up and down, and I told myself to put the reply on a shelf until morning. Crumb 9 smelled like lemon oil and pride. Sandra came over with a bag of church rummage finds, picture frames, a lace runner, a tiny ceramic bird that looked like it had come with an attitude problem. Look at this pretty bookshelf clip, she said, holding up a small plastic adhesive cable clip, the kind that keeps cords from looking like snakes in your house. It keeps things tidy for safety. Tidy for safety, I repeated, and added the clip to my drawer of drawer things because metaphors need physical homes too. Crumb 10 was the calendar. I love a calendar because it tells you what day you thought you were living in. Sandra had added Nana nap duty 1 to 3 last Thursday as if we'd ask for relief and she'd stepped into the gap. We hadn't. The marker felt fresh in a way that told me it had been written after the fact so memory could agree. I drew a soft line through the words and wrote text first for help in smaller, kinder letters. I took a photo of the square and filed it in my mind under gentle corrections. On Friday, Crumb 11 was loud enough to wear shoes. Sandra sent a group text to family, me, Caleb, 2 aunts, caught the sweetest yawn on the baby cam today. Our precious angel. Below, a blurry screenshot of our child's face in soft light, her mouth a small O. The angle was unfamiliar. The date stamp in the corner was not from Rabbit Ear, our chosen monitor. The room background was our nursery, but the shot was lower, nearer the shelf than the crib. My stomach did the exact thing you think. It dropped and then recovered because I've been practicing not being a person who falls apart at the first rude sentence. Caleb replied before I could, which cam is that, Mom? 3 dots. Then, the little camera I mentioned. It's only for nap checks. Don't be mad. I typed we can talk about this tonight, then deleted it because we were not going to talk, we were going to write. I took a screenshot of the screenshot, then saved the photo and its metadata the way a person saves seeds for next season. After dinner, Crumb 12, she asked me where the manila folder was that she had left with important appliance manuals. I didn't know we were taking appliance manuals as a joint custody matter. She showed me a picture on her phone of the folder on our console, a circle drawn around it like a woman cataloging a scene. I just want to make sure everything is organized, she said, voice bright. The folder had slipped under the console table. I pulled it out and set it upright. She smiled, satisfied. Later, curious, I looked inside. Manuals, yes. And a printed quick start guide for a Luma Home indoor camera. Plug in, connect to Wi-Fi, name your room. In the margin, in her tidy teacher print, nursery? The question mark had the confidence of a yes. That Sunday, the football game made noise in the living room while I folded laundry into small, polite stacks. Sandra laughed from the couch at a commercial that told her who to be in 30 seconds. You should really name your Wi-Fi something cute, she said, scrolling. Right now it's just your last name and a string of numbers. She looked directly at me, at the patience on my face, and amended, you could make a guest network. 4 friends. We have a guest network, I said. It's on the card. She nodded, and I remembered she had asked for the password twice this month. Some lessons you learn twice because you weren't listening to the right part of the sentence the first time. The last crumb before the red was not small, it was a loaf. I came home Thursday to find a little square of painter's tape on the nursery wall at shoulder height, tucked near the bookshelf like a bookmark for a room. Someone had written I line on it in pencil, then erased it and smudged the eraser mark with their thumb. My breath did a quick, disloyal thing. I peeled the tape with my nail, the way you peel a label from a jar you plan to keep. I set it on the dresser out of sight and told myself I was not ready to know what it meant. I didn't confront her. I didn't scold myself for letting the crumbs collect. I did what I always do when the room's story disagrees with mine. I started a list with a boring title. Nursery Anomalies. I wrote in the small, neutral words that make judges and teachers exhale. Nightlight swapped for smart plug. Date? Package, Luma Home, arrived with Sandra's name, stated gift for us. Calendar edition Nana nap duty added post hoc, corrected to text first. Screenshot shared to family from unknown camera angle. Quick start guide for indoor cam found in appliance manuals. Painter's tape mark I line near shelf. I added Wi-Fi password requested twice, guest network details provided, and step stool out, bookshelf rearranged. I did not write I am afraid. I wrote observe. Caleb read the list that night with his hand on the back of his neck, that gesture men make when they're agreeing with the shape of a problem but not ready to grieve its contents. I'll talk to her, he said. Not yet, I said. Talking isn't the first step. Naming is. And we're still collecting nouns. He looked at me with the face he wears when he remembers why he married a teacher. Okay, he said. We collect. So we collected without being detectives. We were just people who noticed. We saved screenshots. We starred messages. We took photos of small things, the smart plug, the cable clip, the tape smudge, the adapter in the wall, next to a coin for scale like a crime show taught us, even though this was not a crime show. It was a house where a grandmother loved too much in the wrong direction and a mother refused to let the air be filmed. The night the red dot blinked, I wasn't surprised. I was still. The breadcrumbs hadn't just led to the shelf, they had taught me how to walk without making a mess. And in the rocking chair, with the sound machine convinced the world was raining, I made a decision I know I will be grateful for until I am old. I chose to be boring on purpose. Tomorrow, I would take the calm photos. Tomorrow, I would gather the model number like a person picking up a bead necklace that broke in the drawer. Tomorrow, I would call a company from my work phone and ask what happens to an account when a device is added under a shared email with a name that matches mine. Tomorrow, I would borrow Claire's eyes and ask what she saw and when, and request the front desk to note comings and goings if they had them. Tomorrow, I would look at our router's not very friendly admin page and take a screenshot of every device connected to our air. But tonight, in the blue room, I did the easiest, hardest thing. I sat still with my child and let a dot confess what it wanted to be without my help. Morning arrived like it always does, bold, ordinary, not caring what happened in the blue room. I cared. I cared with a steadiness I hadn't practiced this much since labor. I made coffee like a scientist, scoop, level, pour. I opened the window the ceremonial 2 inches and wrote the date at the top of a fresh notes page. Privacy incident, nursery, day 1. Under that, a timeline with real hours, not vibes. 2:11 a.m. observed red LED. 2:14 initial photos, context plus serial. 2:22 noted wall adapter swap, brand visible. 2:30 added no prior consent line. I didn't wake Caleb with a verdict. I kissed his shoulder, which counts as love on mornings like this, and said, I'm going to gather facts. Please don't move anything. He propped himself on an elbow, sleep still ironing his face. We're okay? We're precise, I said, which is a kind of okay that holds longer. Nora babbled at the ceiling fan as if it were a friendly aunt. I changed her and let her pat my cheek with serial hands while I took daylight photos of the nursery shelf, full shot, then medium, then macro, the way Ms. Patel taught me to photograph things when she helped us with the lock mess months ago. I took a photo with a quarter for scale because juries and principals alike like to know sizes. I took a photo of the cord path, down the back of the shelf, across the baseboard, into the wall where the smart plug lived like a landlord. Next, I did the thing my teacher brain loves. I labeled the room without touching the scene. Yellow sticky notes, tiny, non-permanent, gentle. I stuck one beneath the lens location, unapproved device, suspected camera, with an arrow. Another at the outlet, new adapter, brand, Luma. A third on the shelf edge, board books rearranged, C10/photo, to establish before and after later. I photographed the labels in place and then removed them so my child didn't learn letters from my litigation. I did not unplug the device. Spoliation is a big word for don't erase the story you're trying to tell. I wanted it powered for logs. But I also didn't want a stranger's eye on my morning. So I tore a small square of washi tape, opaque, low tack, forgiving, and pressed it gently over the lens. The red dot went black. If the device recorded anything now, it would record privacy. I took a photo of the lens with the tape and added a line to the timeline, 8:07, lens covered with opaque tape, power left connected, no alteration to wiring. At 8:12, I opened my phone and downloaded the Luma Home app, not to sign in, but to screenshot the onboarding flow, plug in. Scan QR, connect to Wi-Fi. Name your room. Pages 2 and 3 displayed the exact model silhouette that sat on our shelf. I saved each screen with the time at the top and the app version number at the bottom, the way a person tucks labels into quilts so future hands know what they're holding. I pressed Forgot Password on the app's sign-in screen and typed our shared family email. The app responded, if this email is registered, we'll send instructions. A minute later, our inbox chimed. Luma Home, reset your password. That meant someone had used our email to create the account. I did not reset, no touching the narrative. I took a screenshot of the email subject line plus timestamp and archived it. I added a line to my timeline, 8:21, password reset email received at family email, indicates account exists under this address. Did not use link. Caleb appeared in the doorway with an expression that wanted to be helpful and not defensive. Coffee, he asked. Please, I said, and turned the laptop toward the shelf so the camera was in my periphery like a person I could ignore only on purpose. Next, the router. I typed the IP I know by heart now. We've had enough home internet arguments to memorize 192.168.1.1 and logged into our admin panel. Every home router is a different temperament, ours is practical and ugly. I navigated to connected devices and there they were. Rabbit ear, our monitor. Caleb phone. Ren phone. Laptop run. Laptop Caleb. Luma Indoor Cam 3A9B, vendor, Luma Technologies, Mac ending, 3A9B. My relief that it didn't try to hide was its own kind of anger. I took screenshots, full page and close-up on the device entry, plus the router time in the corner. I clicked device details and captured the first scene/last scene stamps. First scene, yesterday, 1342. Last scene, now. I added a line to the timeline, 8:34, router shows device Luma Indoor Cam 3A9B connected, first scene yesterday 1:42 p.m. Yesterday at 1:42 we were at daycare, I said out loud to the room, as if the room needed reminding. Caleb nodded slowly, his jaw doing the apology it does before the words arrive. I opened DHCP logs, which is a fancy way to say the router's diary. I don't pretend to be a network engineer, I pretend to be a teacher grading a student who thinks they're clever. I exported a .txt log, took a screenshot of the table with MAC addresses, and saved it all in a new folder on my desktop, household privacy nursery device. I named the files like someone else would need to understand them, 01_shelf_0812.jpg, 02_serial_closeup_0815.jpg, 03_router_clients_0834.png. I created a readme.txt at the top with a plain list of what each file was, as if I were writing to a future me who had slept since then. Then I checked the smart plug. It was indeed Luma, small logo on the side, a QR sticker with a device ID. I photographed the sticker with and without my finger pointing, 2 shots, 2 contexts. I traced the cord from the camera to the plug, then the plug to the wall outlet. Behind the console, I found a tiny adhesive cable clip, the very kind Sandra had bragged about, stuck to the baseboard to hold the wire tidy. I photographed it with a ruler for scale, because petty can still be professional. At 9:03, I texted Claire, neighbor, witness, warrior, can I run something by you? No drama, just eyes. She knocked at 9:07, because good women are clocks when you need them. I walked her to the nursery and pointed without pointing, lens under tape, cord path, smart plug. She whistled low. That was not in here when I dropped off the books last Friday, she said. And yesterday at 1:45, I saw your mother-in-law through your window on a stool. She had a little toolkit. Pink handle. Cute, threatening. Can you text me that sentence? I asked. And the time. She did, right there, adding her phone's timestamp to the message. Saw MIL on stool in nursery 1:45 p.m. yesterday, tiny toolkit. We didn't embellish. We didn't accuse. We just wrote what was true. At 9:20, I opened the brown box with Sandra's name that had arrived last week and which I had set aside as a generosity I wasn't ready to accept. Inside, the retail packaging for a Luma Home indoor camera. The box insert, cradling foam, the quick start guide I had already seen printed in the appliance manuals folder, the warranty card with a space for date of purchase, blank, and an extra adhesive mount still with its backing on. I took a photo of the shipping label stitched to the brown box, sold by Luma Home/ship to Sandra Carter/ our address, /date, 5 days ago. I snapped the packing slip with its neat text, Quantity 1, Model IH2, Color, Black. I placed the box next to the shelf and took a context shot, device on shelf, box in frame, date in corner of my phone, like a family portrait the device hadn't asked for. Caleb came to the doorway and rubbed the back of his neck. I called her, he said. Left a message, can you come by tonight? Need to talk. I didn't say why. Good, I said. We're not surprising her. We're writing it down. He looked at the taped lens. Is the baby? She's fine, I said. The eye is blind right now. I didn't unplug anything. He exhaled, a quiet that agreed with me. Thank you. At 9:41, I called Luma home support from my work phone, not to trick them, just to keep buckets separate. I wanted to know what was knowable without prying. The tech who answered had a voice like iced tea. How can I help today? I found a Luma camera on my home network that I didn't install, I said, calm as the librarian I had been at 2:30 a.m. I'm not asking you to tell me who owns what. I just need generic information about what happens when a device is added to an account. Does it log an activation date? An email? Anything a normal user would see if they were the owner? He was careful, which made me trust him more. We can't share account info, but yes, a user can see activation date in the app's device settings. The system also emails a device-added notification to the account email. If you have the device's serial and proof of residence, we can escalate to device removal on safety grounds. That requires a short form. Thank you, I said, and wrote magic words in my notes, activation date / device added email / safety removal form. If Sandra claimed it was hers and not ours, the app would still show a birthday for the camera. Time tells on people, even when people don't. When I hung up, I added another line to my timeline, 9:41, support confirms owner can see activation date, device added email exists, removal possible with proof of residence. I did not request removal yet. First, I wanted to establish who did what when with our own paper. I printed the router client list, yes, I keep a home printer, yes, I am that person, and highlighted Luma Indoor Cam 3A9B like a student's name in a roll call. I printed 2 of the shelf photos and the shipping label. I slid everything into a clear sleeve and wrote nursery device, discovery packet on the tab because tab names matter. This wasn't a courtroom. This was a kitchen table that knows how to be won if it must. At 10:12, I texted Marisol, my friend who works IT at the district and who has saved me from 19 kinds of avoidable panic. Question: no emergency small home camera on my network that I didn't install. I'm collecting, not confronting. What would you preserve today? She replied, don't touch the narrative, save it. Then a list. Photos, in situ, serial, power path. Router clients plus logs, export. App onboarding screenshots. Any emails, device added / password reset. Keep power on but lens covered. If SD card present, photograph slot only, don't remove. Start a privacy incident timeline, neutral language. Record witness statements in text, timestamped. Photograph packaging and shipping label. Screenshot calendar edits relevant to nap duty. If you confront, use printed packet plus ask for acknowledgement in writing. I could have kissed my phone. I replied with a photo of my packet. She sent a heart and a "you're insufferably prepared" gif, which I took as the compliment it is. I checked the device body for a micro SD slot, and there it was, a tiny seam on the side with SD etched faint. I did not remove it. I photographed the slot with my initials on a sticky next to it for size and context. If recordings lived there, they lived there. If recordings lived in the cloud, the activation email and the account held that truth. Either way, the lens saw nothing now but tape. By noon, I had a binder section forming, spine label a little dramatic for a Tuesday, household of privacy. Inside, discovery packet, router printouts, Luma support call notes, witness texts, email screens. I printed the group text where Sandra had shared the nap screenshot and highlighted the date, time overlay that didn't match rabbit ears format. I have taught enough kids to see when fonts betray the author. I ate a sandwich over the sink because this was not a day to perform lunch. Caleb stood with me, chewing as if that were a job he could clock. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we let the device sit and tell its story while we live ours," I said. "We don't poke. We don't accuse. Tonight, we ask 3 questions and we listen. Then we write." He nodded. 3 questions? I held up a finger for each. 1. Did you install this camera? 2. On what date and time? 3. Under which account? He blew out a breath that might have been a prayer. "And if she says she did?" "Then we thank her for her honesty," I said, "and we roll out action, kindly, clearly. Removal form, building notice, no recording letter, daycare pickup list tightened, all of it." I smiled without giving the smile a job. But that's tonight. Today is discovery. Afternoon brought 2 more small pieces of paper that make rooms behave. First, Ms. Joy at daycare handed me a copy of our authorized pickup list and asked if I wanted to add or remove anyone. "We're tightening," I said. "Leave it as is for now, but note verify ID on any grandparent pickup unless pretexted by me or Caleb." She understood more than I said and initialed the line. Second, Mr. Huang posted a notice in the lobby, "Buyer walkthrough tomorrow 12:31, to which I added a sticky, "Tenants present, no photos of interiors without consent." It wasn't related to the nursery. It was related to my nervous system. At 4:05, while Nora napped, I sat at the table and printed the password reset email and the Luma welcome from last week. I opened the Luma app again and, without logging in, navigated to the Help tab. Where do I see my device's activation date? I screenshotted that page, too. If we needed to ask for that screen tonight, I wanted the exact path. At 5:41, Sandra texted, "Be there by 6:30. Bringing stew, protein for my girl." My girl could mean me or the baby. I chose to hear it as the baby and to be grateful for beef. I set the table like I was setting a stage, 3 plates, water glasses, a small stack of papers at my left, discovery packet topmost. I moved the baby's high chair so she wouldn't have a direct line of sight to the shelf, which is the kind of superstition that looks like wisdom even when you laugh at yourself for it. Sandra arrived at 6:28. She is that kind of punctual, cheeks pink, stew smelling like a winter that forgives you. She kissed the air near Nora's head, then stopped short, habit checking itself. "May I?" she asked, palm out. "Yes," I said. She patted the curls with a tenderness that made me ache. People are layered. That's the worst and best of it. We ate. We talked about Ms. Joy's leaf craft as if it were the State of the Union. Caleb complimented the stew twice in 2 different ways, rich and comforting, which is his way of patting a room. We did not show her the shelf. We did not interrogate. We waited until the bowls were pushed back and the baby's hands smelled like soap. Caleb put his folded napkin on the table, his signal to himself that he is capable of a hard sentence said gently. "Mom," he began, "can we talk about a tech thing you installed?" Sandra looked at him, then at me, wary and ready. "Of course," she said, almost cheerful. "The signal booster? The smart plug?" "I can explain." "The camera," I said, placing the discovery packet between us the way you place a map between people who disagree on a route. "Did you install a Luma home camera in the nursery?" Her smile did something complicated, started, stopped, gathered itself into a rational face. "Oh, that little thing," she said, hand fluttering. "It's not a spy camera. It's just to check naps. Safety. I wanted to help you rest." On what date and time did you install it? I asked, voice even, pen resting on the timeline, ready to catch the answer the way you catch rain. She blinked, surprised by the exactness. Yesterday afternoon, she said. Around 2? I was here tidying the books while you were out. I thought, it's so easy, I'll just. And you used our family email to create the account? I asked, tapping the password reset printout with one finger so the room would understand this part was already decided. She glanced at the paper, then back at me. Her mouth chose truth, maybe because lies cost too much breath. Yes. I wanted to be able to share the login with you. So we could both watch. We don't, I said softly. We didn't consent. And the nursery is not a place that gets filmed by anyone but the parents, with the parents' device ever. I slid the router screenshot into view, my yellow highlighter smiling up politely. The camera connected yesterday at 1:42 p.m. The app sent a device-added email. It sits on our shelf right now. Power is left on for logs, the lens is covered for privacy. We have photographs of the cereal, the shipping label addressed to you, and the quick start guide you filed in our appliance manuals folder. I'm not scolding you. I'm stating the facts we'll write down so we can all stop remembering them differently. She stared at the packet, then at my face, as if deciding whether we were enemies or adults. I was trying to help, she said, smaller now. I wanted you to rest. I believe you, I said. And even help needs permission. Especially help that records. Caleb reached and put his hand on the table, not touching hers, not touching mine, touching the middle. We need to take it down, Mom, he said. We'll do it together, tonight, and we'll write an acknowledgement so the story stops moving. Sandra swallowed. You'll make me sign something. We'll invite you to, I said. Because paper keeps love from having to be a courtroom again. She looked at Nora, who was gnawing on a silicone spoon like a shark at a spa. She looked at the shelf, where the black square wore its little bandage of tape. She looked at me, and God help us all, she nodded. Okay, she said. Tell me what to do. I exhaled, not triumph, not sadness, relief with a backbone. First, we'll photograph the activation screen on your phone, I said, lifting the help screenshot that showed where to find it. Then we'll remove the device using your app. Then we'll unplug it together and place it in this evidence bag. I held up a clean gallon zip because I am nothing if not myself, and we'll write a one-paragraph acknowledgement. You installed it, date and time, no consent, removed today. No further recording devices in our home. We'll all sign. Tomorrow, we'll send a no recording notice to management and to you, just to put a period on the sentence. She made that small sound people make when they realize a thing is much bigger than the story they told themselves about it. I didn't mean harm, she whispered. I'm not writing harm, I said gently. I'm writing what happened. That's the only way to keep harm from borrowing our names. She unlocked her phone with hands that shook just a little, pride shivering on its way down. She opened the Luma app, yes, there it was on her home screen, next to a solitaire game, and tapped through device settings. On the last screen, activation, yesterday, 1:43 p.m. Name, nursery. Owner, our family email. She stared at the email as if it had arrived uninvited, then handed me the phone. I took a photo of the screen in good light and a second in lower light in case anyone ever questioned glare. Thank you, I said. Now, please tap remove device. She did. The app gave a cheerful device removed banner, which felt obscene in its cheer but useful in its clarity. The router still showed Luma Indoor Cam 3A9 be connected. I refreshed until it dropped. Last seen, 6:57 p.m. I snapped that, too. Caleb unplugged the smart plug and coiled the cord with the care of a man refusing to be cruel. I slid the camera and plug into the bag, sealed it, and wrote the time across the top with a marker, 6:58 p.m. Then I wrote "Do not destroy" and placed it in the privacy binder's front pocket only long enough to photograph that, too, because some images explain themselves. At the table, I drafted the acknowledgement in plain words. Nursery camera acknowledgement, date. I, Sandra Carter, installed a Luma Home indoor camera, model IH2, serial, XXX, in the nursery at our address, on yesterday's date, around 1:43 p.m. without prior consent from tenants Run and Caleb Carter. The device was powered and connected to the home network. On today's date, at 6:58 p.m., in the presence of Ren and Caleb, I removed the device from my account and from the premises. I agree that no recording, streaming, or monitoring devices will be installed in the home without both tenants' written consent. I understand the nursery is not to be recorded by any third party. Signatures and time. We signed. Her hand shook on the S but steadied by Carter. Caleb exhaled like a person who had set something down that wasn't his but had been on his shoulder anyway. I took a photo of the signed page and tucked the original into a sheet protector because paper that has done good work deserves a jacket. We cleared the bowls. Sandra stood at the sink and washed them without fuss, then stopped, as if remembering whose kitchen has what verbs now. May I finish these? She asked. You may, I said. Asking is a small miracle when it's fresh. When she left, she kissed the air near Nora's head and not her face. She'd read the guest and photo policy I taped to the cabinet last month. I saw it in her eyes. At the door, she turned back. I'm sorry, she said, small, real. I thought safety was a gift. I forgot it can also be a knife. Safety is a gift when invited, I said. Tonight, you brought honesty instead. That's the bigger gift. After she was gone, I sat at the table and updated the timeline. 6:28 p.m. Sandra arrived, dinner, neutral tone. 6:52 presented discovery packet, asked 3 questions. 6:55 Sandra acknowledged installation, showed app activation. 1:43 p.m. owner email, family address. 6:57 device removed from account, router last seen 6:57 p.m. 6:58 device unplugged, sealed in evidence bag, acknowledgement signed. I emailed scan PDFs, packet plus acknowledgement, to household privacy with the subject nursery device, discovery complete, and BCC'd myself because belts and suspenders were having a good year at my house. I didn't copy Ms. Patel yet. That would be action. Tonight was proof. We put the baby to bed in a room that was only a room again. The sound machine whispered rain. The nightlight went back into the outlet. The chair creaked its 7th sway. The shelf held only books. Caleb sat across from me on the couch, elbows on knees, eyes that knew tired. I should have seen it coming, he said. We did, I said, and touched the binder spine that now said privacy. We saw it and we chose a different story. He nodded at the bag on the console, the camera sleeping in plastic like a moth that would not learn light properly. What do we do with that? Tomorrow, I said. We notify and we build. He leaned back, stared at the ceiling fan. You were calm. I was boring, I said, and smiled. On purpose. Morning wore its sensible shoes. I put the kettle on and opened the binder to the privacy tab the way some folks open a prayer book, expecting instructions that don't move when you're tired. First page, privacy incident timeline. I rewrote it clean, black ink, block letters a judge could love. 2:11 a.m. red LED observed on nursery shelf. 6:55 p.m. Sandra acknowledged installation. 6:57 p.m. device removed from account. 6:58 p.m. Device unplugged, bagged, labeled. 7:02 p.m. Acknowledgement signed. I left a blank column on the right for document/photo ref and began filling it with the file names I'd already standardized. Paper teaching memory how to behave. Next, I drafted 3 notices before the house woke fully, 1 to the landlord, 1 to daycare, and 1 to Sandra. 1. Notice to landlord/management, email plus PDF. Subject, informational notice, unauthorized recording device, resolved, /tenant access clarification. I kept it boring, which is to say powerful. Dear Mr. Huang and Mr. Ortiz, for your records, on date, a third-party, family member, installed a Luma Home indoor camera in our nursery without tenant consent. As of time, yesterday, the device has been removed from account and premises. We have documented the timeline and obtained signed acknowledgement from the responsible party, attached. No law enforcement action requested at this time. As a precaution, we're reaffirming our access policy. No third-party entry to our unit without tenants present, no photos or recordings inside our unit by vendors, agents, or visitors without written consent. Please confirm receipt and add this note to our file. Ren and Caleb Carter, apt, #. Attachments, Discovery Packet, PDF, Acknowledgement, PDF. I pressed send. The little whoosh sounded like a paper airplane flying exactly where it needed to go. 2. Daycare update, form plus note. I printed the authorized pickup form and wrote Verify ID on all non-parent pickups in the margin, initialed and dated. Then a sticky. Hi Ms. Joy. We're tightening privacy at home and staying consistent everywhere. Only parents may view or receive live images/video of our child. No grandparents or relatives may access cameras or streams. Please call us if anyone asks to peek at Nap via device. Thank you for guarding her quiet. Ren. I love a note that sounds like a quilt. 3. No recording notice, to Sandra. I wrote this one at the table, tea steam curling the edges of my resolve. Cease and do not install notice, home recording/monitoring. 2. Sandra Carter. Date, today's date. This confirms, on, yesterday, a Luma Home indoor camera was installed in our nursery without our prior consent. Device was removed, time, and returned to our custody. Going forward, please do not install, connect, or enable any recording/monitoring devices, cameras, smart plugs with cameras, baby cams, nanny cams, audio recorders, etc., in our home or on our network, nor access our home Wi-Fi or accounts, without written consent from both Ren and Caleb. Please also do not upload, share, or retain any images/video captured from the unauthorized device. If any cloud copies exist, kindly confirm written deletion by date plus 7 days. We value your relationship with our family and want to keep it healthy and clear. Sign below to acknowledge receipt and agreement. Signature lines. I printed 2. 1 for her. 1 for our binder. By 9:05, the apartment smelled like toast and a plan. Caleb buckled Nora into the stroller, then lingered like a man who's learned that sometimes the bravest thing he can say is what next? Next we call non-emergency, I said. Not to punish. To log. He nodded. I'll brew a second cup. I dialed the city's non-emergency line. A woman with a map in her voice answered. I spoke in neutral sentences, the way I tell 7th graders how we'll grade a test. We had a third party install a camera in our nursery without consent. We've removed it and have a signed acknowledgement. We're not in danger. We're requesting a log number to document the incident for our files and to ask general guidance about the unlawful surveillance statute in residences. She asked the 4 questions they have to ask. I answered yes, yes, no, no. I'll generate an incident number, she said. If you'd like, I can send a unit to take a brief report in person. In person isn't needed, I said. A log is good. If guidance is allowed, we'll take it. She read a line, careful but human, generally, recording inside a private home without the consent of the residents is prohibited. You've already secured the device and acknowledgement. Keep any evidence. If any images were shared online, you can request removal, preserve links, and, if needed, file a supplemental. Your incident number is 23 to 4117. Thank you, I said. I wrote 23 to 4117 in the margin like a charm you carry in your pocket. At 10:12, Mr. Huang replied to our email in his sensible font, received. File updated. We'll add no interior photos/recordings without tenant consent to our broker walkthrough rules going forward. Glad you handled this calmly. I forwarded it to privacy and added a tab for building because I like when policy collects friends. I called Luma home again and asked for the safety team. We're the current residents, device was removed and bagged, account used our email but not by us. We're requesting a formal device deactivation confirmation for our records. The rep asked for the serial, our lease page, and a photo of the device. I emailed the packet. 10 minutes later, a tidy reply, case #L99284 opened. Device IH2/389B flagged as removed, no further streaming permitted. We recommend changing Wi-Fi credentials. I saved it, highlighted the case number, and only then allowed myself the relief of a new SSID name that made me laugh, Knock Don't Spy 5G, and a password so long it felt like an oath. Guest network turned on, QR code printed for visitors so we never had to say the phrase out loud again. At noon, I walked the daycare note over. Ms. Joy read it like a sacred text and signed the updated pickup line. We'll use a code word for emergencies, she offered. Something random parents can say if a new adult ever shows up to pick her up. Peach, I said, because there's always one in our house. She wrote it in a box on the form only she could see and then covered it with a sticky like it had earned modesty. Back home, I scanned the cease and do not install notice to a bright, legible PDF, named it norecording_Sandra_date.pdf, and texted, "Hey, can you stop by at 6? One more quick paper for our files, takes 2 minutes." She responded with a simple yes and a heart I chose to trust. The afternoon was a little ceremony of small verbs. I added 23 to 4117, the incident number, to the timeline. I slipped #L99284, Luma case, behind it. I printed Mr. Huang's email about broker rules and paper-clipped it to a new sheet labeled Building, Policy. I exported the router logs to a USB and wrote the date on the plastic with a Sharpie. I placed the evidence bag with the camera into a shoebox on the top shelf of our closet and wrote "Do not discard" on the lid because my future self sometimes cleans with zeal. Caleb arrived from his site with that face a husband wears when he's trying to be useful and not proof. I told the guys I had to be out by 5, he said. We're okay? We're organized, I said, which is the cousin of okay but lasts longer. At 5:58, Sandra knocked, 2 taps, polite. She looked smaller, as people do when a bright idea has asked to be rehomed. I offered tea. She said yes. We sat at the table. This is the last paper for this chapter, I said, sliding the no recording notice across on a small clipboard because a clipboard insists without shouting. It doesn't punish. It clarifies. She read, lips moving slightly on do not upload, share, or retain. She looked up at me like a student who wants to get an answer right. There aren't any cloud copies, she said. I didn't set that part up. But I'll sign to say I haven't and I won't. Thank you, I said, and exhaled the kind of air you save for celebrations smaller than cake. She signed. I signed received. Caleb witnessed. I handed her a copy for her files, which surprised her into a smile. You really are making this into a subject, she said, half admiring, half accusing. I'm a teacher, I said. I give tests we can all pass. She took a sip of tea and then, as if the words had been practicing in her mouth all day, said, I'm sorry for believing privacy was something I could grant you rather than something you already owned. She set the cup down carefully. I'll learn your map. Thank you, I said again, because sometimes thank you is the stitched edge on a hard blanket. After she left, Mr. Ortiz slipped an envelope under our door. Inside, a printout on building letterhead with 3 bullets he'd typed like a man who understands long hallways. No interior photos or recordings during walkthroughs or repairs without tenant consent. Tenants present for all buyer/vendor access. Report any unauthorized devices to management. Handwritten at the bottom, in block letters that felt like a hug, we got you. Oh. I added it to building policy and wrote Ortiz's note in the timeline because gratitude deserves its own line. At 8:20, I called Pastor Elaine, because she's good at sentences that you can hang your coat on. We're not asking you for counsel, I said. Just a blessing for the door. She chuckled. Sunday after service. Bring your keys. We'll keep it simple. Caleb and I ended the night with 2 small after tasks that sound like paranoia and taste like peace. We changed the admin password on the router and printed the new credentials for the binder. We renamed the home camera app Rabbit Ear to Parents Only Monitor, like a label on a jar you don't want anyone to mistake for sugar. I sat at the table and added the last strokes to day 2 of the timeline. 8:47 a.m. email to landlord, notice plus access policy. 10:12 landlord confirmed, broker rules updated. 10:30 non-emergency incident 23 to 4117 logged. 11:05 Luma case hashtag L99284 opened, device deactivated per vendor. 12 o'clock daycare pickup and code word updated. 6:05 no recording notice signed. 7 o'clock building posted interior photo rule. 8:20 pastor scheduled door blessing. Then I closed the binder and let the room be a room. In bed, the ceiling fan whispered its faithful weather. The nursery's nightlight made that small crescent on the wall like a smile that minds its business. Caleb took my hand. I wanted to be angrier, he confessed. I wanted to be louder, I admitted. And instead? We made paper, I said. The quiet kind that moves mountains. He lifted our joined hands like a toast. To boring miracles, he said. To boring miracles, I echoed, and fell asleep inside one. The morning after the signatures dried, the building started speaking our language back to us. A white sheet appeared on the lobby corkboard in Mr. Huang's sensible font, tape corners pressed flat like a teacher's good intentions. Building policy update, unauthorized recording prohibited. Below, 3 bullets. No interior photos/video/audio during showings, repairs, or visits without written consent of tenants. No third-party devices connected to unit power or Wi-Fi without tenant consent. Report concerns to management, emergencies to 311-911 as appropriate. Someone, Ortiz, by the block letters, had handwritten "We respect homes" at the bottom. Claire texted me a picture with 3 gold stars and a lemon, our private shorthand for "We did a boring thing that made life better." I forwarded the memo to the privacy folder and wrote a small line in the timeline, lobby policy posted, tone, firm/neighborly. I like recording the tone of a room. It helps me remember what worked. At 12:28, the buyer's agent arrived for the scheduled window with 2 men in quiet shoes, one woman with a tablet, and new Mr. Huang at their shoulder like punctuation. Before they could admire anyone's baseboards, Ortiz gave a 2-minute briefing in the lobby. No interior photos without consent, he said, in the cadence of a man who would prefer to be fixing an actual pipe. No footage of hallways. No questions to tenants about rent. You will be escorted. You will sign in. You will sign out. The agent smiled a glossy smile that met the new weather. Of course, he said, pen ready. He signed a single sheet at the desk, broker walkthrough rules, bullet points, lines, a box at the bottom for initials. The initials looked smaller than his card. I watched from the mailboxes with the casual interest of a person waiting for a package that was actually a principal. Upstairs, he kept his hands in his pockets. He looked at our thermostat like it would tattle, then looked away. We stood in our doorway, not letting the inside become a museum. We're replacing boilers, he offered, as if warmth were a party favor. Tenants stay in place. Warm is nice, I said, and the sentence didn't have to do more. He nodded and left on time. In the stairwell, I heard him tell the others, tenants here are organized. It didn't sound like praise or complaint, just weather. I wrote that down too, because a reputation is a policy if you keep it consistent. At daycare, Ms. Joy posted a laminated card on the wall near the sign-out sheet, Family Privacy Pledge. It had 6 lines in plain language, no streaming, no unauthorized photos, code word peach for emergency pickups, no pickup exceptions without text from a parent. The kids played with scarves on the floor. The card glowed in the fluorescent light like a halo for boundaries. I hugged Ms. Joy, with permission, and told her laminated kindness should be a municipal service. Sandra texted mid-afternoon, I'd like to tell the family before rumors make it stupid. May I say what happened, and that I signed? The may I was not a costume, she had begun to speak the new language out loud. Yes, I wrote. Plain and short. No details that live in our binder. You can say, I installed a device without permission, it's removed, I signed a no recording agreement, I'm learning. At 5:11, the family group chat pinged alive like a flock of birds. Sandra, I made a mistake. I installed a camera in the nursery without asking. It's removed. I signed a notice that I will not record. I'm sorry. Please don't share pics of the baby without the parents' permission. A cadence I recognized, hers, but steadier. Aunt Lorraine chimed in first, oh, Sandra. Like a sigh and an embrace upgraded into words. Cousin D, we stan growth. She is 23, stan is her amen. Uncle Harold, what law is that? Because he's the uncle who believes everything is a cousin to a statute. I stepped in not with fury but with policy. Thanks for asking, Uncle H, general rule, recording inside someone's home without resident consent is prohibited. We're fine. Please don't post or forward any baby pics without our okay. If you already did, please delete. I attached a soft image, a photo of the front page of our no recording notice, the title and the date visible, names cropped. Not to humiliate. To end rumor before it put on its church shoes. Aunt Marla sent a string of hearts and a recipe for sheet pan chicken in the same minute because other people's drama makes her hungry. Sandra added, I asked for permission before posting this message. That line did as much teaching as any laminated card. The chat quieted the way rooms quiet when someone puts the right sign on the right door. At church, Pastor Elaine texted me privately, I heard only what Sandra told me. Boundaried people make the best pastors. Would you like to co-lead a short session Sunday after service? Privacy and care, help that doesn't hurt. She added a line that tasted like a clean glass of water, we'll talk about asking, consent, and how to apologize with verbs. I said yes, because my mouth had been practicing those sentences in the mirror. Sunday arrived with that chapel-smelling air, wood polish and bulletin ink. We sat 2 rows from the back where our baby can babble without starring. After the last hymn, 15 women and 3 men found the folding chairs in the multipurpose room. Someone had brewed coffee that tasted like a memory. A poster leaned on an easel, Consent and Care, Household Edition. The subtitle, in a smaller font I adored, Love Knocks. Privacy Answers. Pastor Elaine opened simply. Sometimes we call it help when it is really fear dressed up in our best apron, she said. Today we will learn to ask may I, and to hear not yet is love. I told the story in neutral, nouns and hours, not a single adjective that tried to drag anyone's dignity. Sandra sat to my left, hands in her lap, listening like a student before a test she intends to pass. We read 3 sentences aloud and around. Help is welcome when invited. Control is not help. Privacy is not a secret, it's a boundary. No is a complete sentence, may I is a good prayer. Then, without warning, public consequence began to look a lot like public release. A woman I only know as Miss Thompson raised her hand and said in a voice from a long way down, my daughter stopped letting me keep the spare key because I was tidying. She smiled at herself, brave. I replaced tidying with texting. We are better now. Another woman said, I set up a nanny cam at my son's house for safety and I still feel like I can't apologize enough. Pastor Elaine nodded. Then apologize with a calendar, she said, and the room laughed in the kind way. Sandra spoke finally. I thought safety was a gift I could hand to my son and his wife like dishware, she said. It isn't. It's a shelf I need to dust on my own side of the house. She looked at me when she said dust, a wink at how many towels she has folded. The room hummed, recognition is a sound. We ended with a small ritual. People brought their old keys to a bowl at the front, retired spares, mystery keys, a garage key from a house sold in 2009, and dropped them in. The bowl sang a little every time metal met metal. We bless the doors we live behind, Pastor Elaine said. May they open as they should and close as they must. May we learn to knock? On the way out, Aunt Lorraine touched my forearm like she was checking for a pulse. I told your mother-in-law last year that a grandmother's love needs many verbs, she said. Today I learned one more. She squeezed. Thank you for not turning this into a spectacle. It's a lesson, I said. Lessons are best when the whole class passes. Public consequence also looked like policy in places you wouldn't expect. Maple Pediatrics posted a new line at check-in, no recording in exam rooms unless discussed with staff. The receptionist saw me read it and lifted her eyebrows. Parents asked for it, she said. We're grateful. The laminate still smelled like warm plastic. I let that smell remind me people can adapt. At home, the building newsletter arrived in our email, the maple leaf, with clip art that deserved a retirement party and paragraphs that made me smile anyway. The lead item, respecting each other's homes. It listed the new bullet points, introduced a tenant liaison, Claire, of course, and invited everyone to next month's safety and privacy night in the community room. Bring questions, not gadgets, Ortiz had typed, a joke at the bottom that did quiet comedy work. Claire stopped by with a stack of flyers. Can you proofread? She asked. The flyer title, Your Home, Your Rules, a friendly night of policies that make life easier. Below, what's okay, asking, calendars, consent, what's not, surprises, recording, changing locks. I fixed a comma and added one gentle phrase, we honor grandparents, and we honor naps. Claire cackled. Put that on a tea towel. The device itself became a kind of silent teacher. Sandra asked to take it away and dispose of it herself. I said, not yet. We'll keep it bagged for 30 days in case any cloud nonsense tries to live. She nodded, disappointment and relief doing a duet. A week later, she brought over a small note card with the exact sentence I like to collect. I confirm I did not upload any audio-video from the device. No cloud account was created. No files exist in my possession. She had printed and signed it with the care she used to award to church minutes. I slipped it behind the acknowledgement like a folded hand. In the family group chat, the posters who once shared our child's face learned to ask for other images. Can I post the cake? Cousin D wrote. No faces, just frosting. Tag the ducks, I replied, and she did. The comments read, cute cake. Instead of, whose baby is this? It's astonishing how much drama evaporates when you give people something harmless to love. The one messy moment arrived on a Wednesday night around 7:40. Aunt Sheila, who is built from good cooking and bad Facebook, uploaded a collage she'd made from old screenshots Sandra had texted her months ago. My phone chirped, the image flashed, my ribs did their defensive lift. I wrote a single sentence immediately, before my body could try to be eloquent. Aunt Sheila, please delete that collage. It includes an unauthorized screenshot. We're not sharing the baby's face publicly. 3 dots. A pause. Aunt Sheila, oops. Didn't know. Delete notification. A second later, deleted. Sorry. She added a glitter gif that apologized on her behalf with jazzy fonts. Sandra, bless her learning, texted privately to Aunt Sheila a screenshot of the no recording title and a line, "We're honoring this." Aunt Sheila sent 3 apologetic pie emojis back. We all survived. By the second week, the public consequences had become public habits. The buyer's agent now scheduled by asking would 12:30 work, instead of informing we'll be there. Ms. Joy emailed the quarterly privacy statement for the center with 2 new additions we had inspired, her closing line, "Thank you for helping us be better." The building's group chat turned from rumors to reminders. Claire said a repeating event, policy night, 2nd Tuesday, 7 p.m., coffee, no recordings. Someone added a cookie emoji. Someone else added BYO mug. The chat did not devolve. That felt like civic progress. Here's what didn't happen. We didn't blast Sandra on Facebook. We didn't post how-to guides with her name in the margins. We didn't turn the camera into a necklace we wore around her neck every time we needed leverage. We turned it into paper and then into policy and then into a meeting with coffee. Shame tends to make people lie better. Rules tend to make them tell the truth sooner. At the next Consent and Care, Pastor Elaine handed out a 1-page privacy and love handout, 5 scripts, 2 checklists, 1 blessing. Sandra asked for 5 copies for friends at choir, and I watched her not perform the sentence. She meant it. On a quiet Saturday, she came by with a tiny gift bag, no tissue paper, no flourish. Inside, the adhesive cable clips she'd installed weeks ago, peeled from the baseboard with care, their stickiness gone, their threat retired. "I thought I'd return these to your drawer things," she said, light. "But only with your permission." We laughed, and I took them the way you take a bow from a bouquet, grateful, amused that you ever needed so much decoration. We disposed of the device on day 31. Caleb and I drove to the electronics recycling drop with the zip bag in my tote and a feeling that was not vengeance but maintenance. The bin swallowed the black square and the smart plug and the adhesive mount and all the quick start promises. I wrote the date on a small index card when we got back, device physically recycled, and tucked it in the binder only because closure is a paper I like to file. Public consequence touches even the tiny corners of a life. The Wi-Fi name, Knock Don't Spy 5G, made the Spectrum guy who came to check a neighborhood line chuckle. "Message received," he said, climbing his ladder. The guest QR printed in our binder meant I never again had to recite a password that makes your mouth feel silly. My mother, Diane, who tends to call from the porch without warning when she's in town, began to text front steps. May I come up? And I began to answer yes, just you. Little public liturgies, private ease. Some consequences were invisible. Caleb started telling stories about his mother that didn't need a defense attorney. She baked cookies for my entire third grade once, he said one night, half smiling, because my teacher wrote quiet in class on my behavior chart. She thought sugar would fix it. He shrugged. She's been trying to sweeten the weather for a long time. We sat in the warm quiet of a house no longer being filmed and decided to let some weather be weather. We closed the loop with Luma too. An email landed, case #L99284 closed. Device deactivated. Account email flagged for any new device additions, notifications will be sent. I printed it and wrote closed in the margin with a little box I checked so my brain believed me. On the morning of safety and privacy night, the community room smelled like church coffee again. Claire drew a door on the whiteboard with a marker and wrote "May I" above the knock line. Ortiz arrived with a stack of policy copies and a plate of cookies he hadn't baked but wanted credit for carrying. Mr. Huang set out pens. 15 neighbors came, some with strollers, some with tote bags, one with a dog that looked like it had read the rules. We went over tenants' rights. Ortiz, we're not a law firm, but we know where to tape the right page. Visitor etiquette. Claire, ask first, stay in your chair. Digital hygiene. Me, guest network is love. QR codes are grace. Sandra sat in the second row and asked a question that did not carry a defense. What sentence do you use when you forget and get carried away? She said, raising her hand like a student changed for good. Pastor Elaine, in the back with a paper cup, called out gently, I forgot what chair I'm supposed to sit in. May I start again? The room murmured yes. We wrote the sentence on the whiteboard. Later that week, Claire texted a photo of a no recording plaque one of the neighbors had 3D printed for fun. Too much, she wrote. I sent back a picture of our key hooks, just 2 fobs, no extras, the hooks gleaming like good punctuation. Just enough, I replied. Sandra asked to borrow our printer. Budget committee minutes, she said. Not privacy paperwork. I promise. She printed, the machine whooshing the way a thing does when it knows its job. Before she left, she looked at the binder on the shelf and the tiny privacy label and said, I used to think binders were for people who worried too much. Now I think they're for people who like their hearts to sit down. Mine needed a chair, I said. She took a breath and then did a small brave thing. I asked Pastor if I could give a short talk at choir next month, helping without watching. She said yes. She laughed at herself. Don't worry, I won't bring props. You can bring the word may, I said. It's all the prop you need. Public consequence isn't the same as public humiliation. It's the polite sign on the door that makes everyone's day easier. It's the laminated card on the daycare wall, the bullet points on the lobby board, the buyer with his hands in his pockets, the aunt who deletes a collage, the liaison with a flyer and a comma. It's a house exhaling because the camera went to sleep at a recycling center while the family kept learning how to be awake. That night, after safety and privacy, we came home to an apartment that smelled like something simple and good: rice, butter, green beans with lemon. Caleb set bowls on the table with the gentleness he saves for nights he wants to be the reason everything feels steady. The wind picked up outside and rattled the maple, and for a second I thought I heard the retired keys chime on Sandra's porch singing its small, polite music. I imagined the camera charm it didn't need. I wrote one last line in the timeline before bed: the room learned our sentence. The neighborhood learned it too. Then I closed the binder, turned off the lamp, and let the faithful noises, fridge hum, fan whisper, Nora's soft exhale, be the only recordings in my home. Resolution didn't arrive with trumpets. It came in socks, carrying a tape measure and a cup of tea. On a Saturday the color of clean paper, I pulled the nursery rug into the hall and let the floorboards show their age. New layout, I told the room, as if rooms appreciate a forewarning. Caleb fetched the felt pads like a man who has learned the gospel of quiet furniture. We moved the crib 2 feet from the shelf and rotated the chair so my back faced the doorway when I rock. No more eyes at my shoulder, imagined or otherwise. I reshelved the books in a way that made sense to my hands, touch and feel on the bottom, board book animals at arm height, the fancy picture books high where optimism belongs. The little moon rabbit print went above the chair, out of reach of curious fingers and overly helpful ones. I unsnapped the baby monitor, our chosen one, renamed Parents Only Monitor, and mounted its arm to the crib's far post, cables stitched along the wall in white cord covers we installed together, laughing at ourselves for how serious we could be about something so small and so necessary. Caleb held the level like a conductor, and I tapped the plastic until the bubbles centered. Sing it straight, I murmured, and it did. The app flickered to life, green bars, a hush. The camera sat in its little bracket like a faithful usher, present, invited, boring. We swapped the old nightlight for one with amber glow instead of frost. Warmer light, warmer story, Caleb said, and I tucked that sentence into the binder in my head where I keep compliments that do more than flatter. The smart plug was gone now. The outlet looked like a face that had been relieved of a tight hat. I wiped the baseboard, not to erase the past, only to give the present a clean surface to stand on. In the living room, the router blinked in its new name, Knock Don't Spy 5G. We had printed a guest QR and slipped it into the front pocket of the binder. No more reciting a password that turns your mouth into a math problem. I changed the admin credentials one more time because I like the ritual, the small power of typing a thing only you know and feeling the world rearrange behind it. Caleb watched the screen like it was a campfire. Teach me, he said, and I did, DHCP leases, client lists, logs that tell on sneaky devices. He took notes in his left-hand print, lines neat enough to frame. I don't want to be rescued from this, he said, pen tapping. I want to stand beside you knowing what button to press. Afternoon light made a little path across the table, and I laid down the bones of a new page, household privacy policy. Not a manifesto. A one-page poem made out of verbs. Household privacy policy, Rev 1. Ask first. All help, devices, and surprises require texted permission. Parents only. Cameras/monitoring only by parents' devices/accounts. No recording. No audio-video recording in our home by any third party. Wi-Fi lanes. Guests use the guest QR, home network is private. Screens and sharing. No posting our child's face without written OK, no forwarding cute clips. Pickup rules. Daycare pickup limited to parents unless pre-approved, code word, Peach for emergencies. Keys and entry. No holds on keys, knock and wait, no entering without us present. Paper lives here. Conflicts resolved with notes, not noise, we keep a timeline. May I/not yet? No is a full sentence, may I, is the doorbell for love. I printed it large enough to read without squinting, slid it into a clear sleeve, and clipped it to the inside cover of our binder, opposite timeline. When I turned the page, I could feel both halves, the history and the pledge, holding hands under the plastic. Sandra texted that evening, not a paragraph, not a rescue, just, may I bring groceries tomorrow? I have a salmon that wants a pan. 6:30? I pictured the fish with its suitcase and smiled. Yes, I replied. We'll set a place for you. Knock when you arrive. Use the guest QR. She sent a thumbs up followed by a tiny fish, followed by a tiny door, which is how I knew she was trying. Sunday after church, she handed me a printout from Consent and Care, 5 scripts taped end to end like bunting. May I help with dinner? Would you like me to hold the baby or fold towels? Is this a good week for a visit? I'm proud of the way you're doing this. I forgot. May I start again? She pointed to the last one. This is my favorite, she said. It tastes like mercy. At supper, she knocked at 6:28 and waited the whole 2 beats even though I was close enough to hear the bag handles rustling. Her cheeks were wind pink and her hands were both empty, no tidying disguised as affection. She handed me the groceries after I opened the door, as if that movement mattered. It did. Guest QR, she said, laughing at herself a little. I held up the printed square. She held her phone to it like a chalice. Connected as guest. I feel civilized, she announced, and I believed her. While the salmon crisped, we staged a small apology by action I wish I could bottle for the world. She stood by the counter and asked, "May I wash as you cook?" I nodded, and she did, hands in warm water, mind on the bowl, body in her chair. Caleb set the table like a kindness. We moved around each other the way people do when they have learned the choreography of not being in each other's way. It was ordinary. It was exquisite. Halfway through the meal, she touched the edge of the privacy policy tucked in the binder on the shelf as if it were a new grandchild. I read this 3 times while the oven preheated, she said. It's friendly. It doesn't scold. She looked at me with eyes that do better work than her mouth some days. I would like a copy for my fridge. To practice. I made her one while the salmon rested, shrunk a hair so it would fit in a magnetic frame she liked. She laughed at the peach line like she knew it was mine. It'll look good next to my choir schedule, she said. So when I'm tempted to pop by on a Tuesday, I can read instead. We didn't talk much about the device anymore. We talked about practical trust. She asked for the calendar the way you ask for a friend's recipe, humble and hopeful, ready to learn the difference between teaspoon and tablespoon. Can I forward my choir nights? She asked. So I don't schedule against you accidentally? I said yes, and we lived in a world where a forwarded event is a bouquet. If you're waiting for the marriage part, it came in like rain, the kind you only notice when the smell changes first. On Tuesday, Caleb met me at Dr. Lansing's office with that open face he wears when he's scared of what he might learn and shows up anyway. We sat in the couple chair again, knees nearly touching, and she moved the 3rd chair, the extended family one, back 2 inches like a stagehand knows where the focus belongs. We did the paperwork, Caleb said. But I don't want to be a man who needs paper to be brave. His voice trembled just enough to tell the truth. I want to be the man who says the sentence before the problem walks in. Dr. Lansing nodded toward him. Say the sentence. He looked at me first, then at the space where the hallway used to be between me and his mother. I'm the husband before I'm the son inside this apartment. He said it in a tone I hadn't heard from him, not defiant, not apologetic. Present. Say it again, she said. He did. And I felt something slip into place like a drawer that's been sticking all year. My turn, I said, and I meant it. I can receive invited help, I don't accept control. I didn't say it like a dare. I said it like a doorbell. I have lived enough life to know I need help and enough boundary to know it has a form. We practiced a holiday scene because December was leaning in. Dr. Lansing had us rehearse the sentence before we added a turkey and 3 loud relatives. Caleb, Mom, we're hosting this year. We'll text a dish list. Please arrive at 2:30. We'll knock, you wait. Me, yes to your mac and cheese, no to rearranging my spice rack. Sandra's imaginary line, delivered by Dr. Lansing with a wink, "May I bring extra foil?" We all laughed, which is my favorite kind of progress. We left with index cards, not for Sandra, for us. Caleb's card lived in his wallet. Mine taped inside the cabinet with the tea. He'd open his and remember the order of his rolls. I'd open mine and remember that accepting help can be as brave as delivering a no. 2 days later, the wind chime of retired keys on Sandra's porch sang itself into the afternoon. She had added a tiny tin camera charm, not as a trophy, as a retired number. "For the thing we're finished with," she said when I noticed it. She turned it so the light caught the blank lens and then let it go. It clicked against an old mailbox key and made a sound like punctuation. At Consent and Care the next Sunday, she wore her quiet cardigan and took a seat in the third row with a notebook that still had the price sticker on it because pride wanted to admit it was new at this. During the Q&A, a woman with 3 teenagers and a sigh asked, "How do I stop myself from changing what isn't mine to change?" Sandra lifted her hand like the answer had borrowed her elbow. "Write a list called In My House/Not My House," she said. "Put the toothbrush cup on the first list and the thermostat on the second. Then take a picture and look at it before you drive over." The room laughed like it had been waiting for that small map. Even Pastor Elaine smiled in a way that said exactly. That week, I drafted version 2 of our household privacy policy with 2 additions I learned from living. Appliances and accounts. No adding devices or profiles to our appliances, TVs, streaming, smart plugs, without parents' written okay. Calendars first. All visits, favors, and drive-bys scheduled by calendar invite, accept/decline lives on the invite, not in a text thread we'll forget. I printed version 2 and tucked version 1 behind it like a yearbook photo you don't display but can't throw away. I sent a copy to Ms. Joy for her files. She wrote back, "We're adopting calendar first for class parties." Bless you. Laminators everywhere hummed their approval. At home, the small evidence of repair started appearing where annoyance used to. Sandra sent photos of items in her cart with a question mark, "Do you want this?" instead of summary texts about what she'd bought for us. I often said no, and she began to answer got it without adding a sales pitch. When she did bring something, it came with a receipt and an out. "If this doesn't fit, I'll return it happily." I believed her. She learned our holidays without testing them. Thanksgiving, she arrived at 2:28, a casserole in a carrier, her hands empty enough to hug first. She looked at the counter, saw my spices exactly where I prefer cumin to appear in my day, and did not reach for a single jar. When she finished the last bite of pie, she stood and asked the sentence that has become her version of grace, "May I wrap leftovers or do you prefer to plate them yourself?" I chose to let her wrap them because people deserve to express their love in verbs that no longer wound. Caleb's repair was quieter but broader. He started declaring before he requested. On mornings when he FaceTimed his mother, I'd hear him say, "We're busy from 6 to 8 tonight. We'll call if we need anything." He said it like a fact, not a negotiation. He began to calendar aloud while we loaded the dishwasher, the way people narrate the weather. I accepted choir night. I declined Aunt Lorraine Wednesday. He showed me his phone, not for permission but for solidarity. It made me feel married at the cellular level. At school, I found myself teaching privacy as if it were a comma rule. My 7th graders wrote persuasive essays about screens and boundaries. I wrote 2 sample intros on the board. One began with fear and performed a panic I recognized in the wild. The other began with consent and sounded like a teacher who sleeps. "Which one would you rather carry all day?" I asked. They chose the second, not because it was softer, because it gave them something to do besides shout. Claire stopped by with a loaf and a thought. "I noticed," she said, that your house smells like lemon oil less and like dinner more. I laughed, startled that a neighbor could detect the tidying ratio with her nose. That's resolution, I said. Less performance, more soup. In December, our building held safety and privacy night again, and Ortiz read the new boiler schedule like he was reading names off a door prize list. Units remain occupied, he said. Notice posted. No interior photos. He glanced at me with a half-smile that promised friendship but not boundaryless access. Neighbors shared tips about guest networks. Someone offered to host a QR printing party. We went home with a handout that smelled faintly of toner and hope. The camera itself had long been recycled, but sometimes I'd catch a flash of black in a shop window, a Bluetooth speaker, a sunglasses display, and my chest would do its old traitor lift. I learned to name it out loud, small. My body remembers I'd tell Caleb, and he'd put his hand on my back and say, I see you, the only sentence that has ever actually helped in the moment. On a gray afternoon, I took down the painter's tape smudge I'd saved in the drawer like a relic of a religion I didn't practice anymore. I pressed it into the timeline on the date I had found it and wrote, last artifact filed. It felt like putting a child's baby shoes in a box, not to worship the past, to clear the floor for running. 2 weeks later, a message from Luma landed in the inbox, a generic "we miss you" upsell I would have deleted without thinking before. I printed it and, with a fat black marker, wrote across the page "No, thank you" in letters big enough to laugh at. I slid it behind the device deactivation email. Somewhere, a marketing department counted my quiet unsubscribing as a data point. In our house, it was an exhale. I won't pretend there were no missteps. One Friday, Sandra knocked and, when I didn't open in 30 seconds, texted, in that way people do when they have not yet learned how long 30 seconds can be. I opened the door with wet hands, dish towel doing the job of patience. We're here, I said lightly. We're just finishing the sink. She nodded, caught herself halfway into the kitchen, and asked, may I step in? I said yes. When she left, she did not wipe the counter. I noticed because I notice, and because noticing no longer needed to growl. Christmas came with candles and calendars. We hosted a small gathering with photo rules on a card near the cookies, faces by permission. Hands and pies always welcome. Cousin Dee snapped a picture of the table's edge, forks and wreath napkins and the light hitting the ham like a sermon, and captioned it "At my favorite house where love knocks." She tagged no one. It got 300 likes and not a single weird comment. I took a screenshot and tucked it into events with the same care I save for legal letters. Not all proof has to be corrective. Some proof is a keepsake. On a snow-silent morning, Sandra sent a calendar invite titled "Practice Knocking" with a little bell emoji. The description made me laugh. I will arrive at 6:30. I will stand on the mat and count to 20 before texting. If no answer, I will go home and try a different day. We accepted. At 6:30, she knocked a tap and then stepped back into the frame of the door like a person posing for the art she wants to live inside. We opened at 12. She smiled, proud of doing nothing loudly. I see you, I told her. Thank you. The household privacy policy sprouted a third version in January, not because the rules changed but because my stomach did. I added a line under "Paper lives here, we choose paper before posture." It reminded me to print what mattered and skip the cinematic speeches my mirror invites me to rehearse. Under screens and sharing I wrote "Ask twice if the photo includes a child." I mailed a copy to my mother with a note on a sticky that said, "Put this next to the gumbo recipe. Both are for emergencies." She called the next day and read it back to me like a poem. I cried a little at the part where she didn't argue with any line. Nora toddled through it all, talking to her rabbit like he owed her rent. She learned knock the same week she learned please, a toddler fist tapping our coffee table, her eyes on my face for the cue. I tapped back, and she squealed like she had just invented doors. Maybe she had. Caleb and I invented something too, Wednesday night 10 minutes. We sit at the table with tea that goes cold and read one page from the binder, not to fact-check the past, to remind our bones what we built. Sometimes it's timeline, sometimes agreement, sometimes property where I keep the serial numbers for things that can walk away, sometimes now privacy. We don't always get to minute 9 before one of us says, "That was a good idea," and the other says, "Thanks for saying so." Marriages don't need fireworks as much as they need small applause. The best apology Sandra gave wasn't a sentence. It was a calendar. In February she invited us to Nana's Sunday soup every second Sunday, 5 to 7, leave by 7:10, no dishes required. She texted the day before to ask chicken noodle or vegetable, and the morning of to ask, "Shall I take the stroller down one flight for you?" She didn't post a single image. She printed a copy of the guest and photo policy and taped it to her fridge. At the bottom, she had written in pen, "We ask here." She lives alone, though we made me close my eyes and breathe for 3 beats. When we left her house after the first soup, she walked us to the porch and paused, hand on the frame like she was thanking a door. The wind lifted the retired keys chime and I saw she had added another charm, a tiny tin 3 for the new year. 3 things I know now, she said, smiling at it. Ask, wait, accept. She flicked the camera charm lightly with a fingertip and it clicked against the 3 like a reminder that tools can become trophies only after they're done working. I can't tell you resolution solved me. It didn't. It taught me a grammar I will always be practicing, how to let love in without letting fear drive, how to write a rule without making it a weapon, how to accept help that knocks and send back help that doesn't, no shouting, no scarlet letters, just a polite envelope addressed to the right part of the heart. The nursery looks like a room that remembers a hard chapter and still believes in naps. The chair creaks every 7th sway, the amber light catches dust motes doing their soft, busy work. The shelf holds books and only books. The app is boring. The router blinks in our joke name. The guest QR sits ready for the hands I love. One evening, while Nora stacked cups like little policies, I opened the binder to privacy and slid a photo behind the sleeve, Cousin Dee's cake picture from Christmas, captioned "At my favorite house where love knocks." I wanted the folder to hold this proof too, that resolution doesn't always mean repair by hammer. Sometimes it means repair by habit. Caleb leaned in the doorway and watched me tuck the picture in. "You're filing joy," he said, amused and tender. "I am," I said. "I want the record to show we laughed." The ceiling fan kept its steady weather. The radiator hissed a friendly punctuation. Outside, someone's dog shook its collar, tags chiming a yes. I wrote one last line in timeline for the day, policy lived, love knocked, we answered. Then I closed the book with the soft authority of a person who knows what she'll do next time, because there will always be a next time in a life that contains other people. Closure, it turns out, is not a door slam. It's a soft click you hear because the room got quiet enough to listen. Some nights now, when the apartment has done its chores and sits with its feet up, dishes drying, toy cups tucked into each other like calm breaths, I walk to the nursery doorway and watch the life we built behave. The amber nightlight keeps its moon promise on the wall. The chair creaks every 7th sway even when no one is in it, as if practicing for the next small body that will need it. The shelf holds only books. The app reads parents only monitor and shows a green graph of stillness so boring it could be a lullaby. Boring is my favorite sound. If I have learned anything since the night a red dot tried to borrow the story of my home, it's this: love knocks, cameras don't. Respect is the key, fear is just a hand that rattles the doorknob and calls it caring. I used to think closure would arrive with a speech that made everybody clap. Instead, it came in small verbs: ask, wait, sign, they file, knock, leave, stacked in the right order until they were strong enough to hold a house. Our binder didn't fix us so much as it made it hard to lie to ourselves. Paper didn't make us cold, it made us honest. And honesty, it turns out, is warmer than any apology said too late. Sandra is not a villain in this story. She is a woman who mistook vigilance for love and then learned a better language. She knocks now and waits the full 20 count, sometimes with her hands behind her back like a child practicing patience. She texts "may I bring," and accepts "no, thank you" as a kindness, not a wall. She has a copy of our household privacy policy on her fridge between the choir schedule and a magnet shaped like a spoon. The camera charm on her retired keys wind chime clicks against the little tin 3 and makes a sound like punctuation at the end of a sentence that used to run on too long. That's all I ever wanted, a period where a boundary belongs. Caleb learned to speak before the problem walks in. His "I'm the husband before I'm the son inside this apartment" isn't a performance piece anymore, it's a habit, the way you check the lock without thinking because you've decided to keep what you love. He calendars aloud, shows me his screen, and shrugs at guilt like it's an outfit that doesn't fit anymore. We do Wednesday night 10 minutes with tea and a page from the binder, and somewhere between minute 6 and 7, somebody always says, "Thank you for choosing the quiet thing." It is unbelievable what a thank you can fix. The building changed too. Ortiz's "We Respect Homes" sign keeps its corner on the corkboard. Claire's flyers retired 2 commas and gained a cookie emoji. Mr. Huang's boiler notices arrive with hours and boundaries, not assumptions. The buyer's agent learned to put his hands in his pockets and ask would 12:30 work? Instead of announcing "we'll be there." Policy night still smells like bad coffee and community. I would bottle that scent and wear it if I could. Daycare laminated our yes and nos, which is all I ever wanted for my daughter, the difference between a door and a curtain. Ms. Joy added a new line to the pickup sheet that makes me tear up in the parking lot more often than I will admit. "We ask here." I hope it outlives us all. Not everything is tidy. Sometimes I see a red LED on a charger at the bodega and my ribs prepare for a story they don't have to tell. Sometimes a well-meaning cousin posts a collage and deletes it 2 minutes later and my thumb shakes a little when I type "please remove." Sometimes the chair creaks, and for one mean second my body remembers the eye that didn't belong. Then the house clears its throat, the fridge hum, the fan whisper, the baby's sleep breath, and I remember the sentence I wrote for myself on a sticky note and pressed to the inside of the binder: paper before posture. I do the boring thing next, and the weather changes back. People ask me, quietly, in doorways and DMs, if I regret not going louder. I don't. Rage is bright, but it burns the paper you'll wish you had tomorrow. Proof is patient. It lets you repair without spectacle, and it leaves the bridge standing after you cross it. The best revenge isn't viral, it's structural. It's a laminated sign, a clean policy, a pastor with a sentence, a mother-in-law who waits on the mat and smiles at her own self-control. The baby, who is not a baby anymore in the cruel math of weeks, learned knock the same month she learned please. She taps the coffee table and looks up for permission like a tiny usher with a clipboard. When I say "come in," she bursts through with the joy of a person welcomed. When I say "not yet," she taps again and laughs, having learned that delay is not denial, it's a shape love sometimes needs to wear. If that is the only lesson she takes from my house, I will have done good work. We didn't win because Sandra capitulated. We won because we all learned the difference between being let in and letting ourselves in. We won because the device left in a recycling bin while the relationship stayed. We won because our home became boring again, and boring is safe. On a Tuesday that smelled like lemons and library paste, I opened the binder to privacy and slid one last photo into the sleeve, the community room whiteboard with "May I" written above a cartoon door. Claire had drawn a tiny hand knocking. Underneath it, in Pastor Elaine's neat script, the words we keep coming back to: "Love knocks. Privacy answers." I tucked the photo behind the timeline and closed the cover with the calm authority of a person who knows where her papers live and, therefore, where her peace is stored. Here's the truth no one tells you when they hand you a baby or a set of keys or a marriage license: people will always bring their weather to your door. Some of it will be sunlight, some rain you need, some a thunderstorm disguised as help. You can't stop the weather. You can hang a sign. You can decide what gets in. You can teach yourself to open and close the right parts of your life without apology. You can choose the sentence you want your house to know by heart. Mine knows this one now, we ask here. And this one, too, we wait. Tonight, the maple scratches the window with gentle opinions. The retired key chime on Sandra's porch whispers an amen in tin. Our router blinks its little joke of a name and goes back to minding its business. The app is boring, the crib is only a crib, and my daughter's breath is the only recording I need. I turn off the lamp, feel for the familiar shapes, the doorway, the hall, the edge of the rug, and I hear it, the soft click of a lock doing its job and a home keeping its word. If your heart tightened at that little red, breathe with me, you're not alone. I learned that love knocks, cameras don't, and that quiet proof outlives loud anger. Paper before posture, may I, before I was only trying to help. Tell me in the comments, would you have gone louder, or just as calm? What sentence would you hang on your own front door? We ask here. No surprises. Parents only. I'd love to learn the words that keep your home gentle. If this story gave you steadier shoulders, share it with someone who's rebuilding their peace one boundary at a time. And if you want more true, first-person stories told with dignity and receipts, subscribe to the channel. New hour-long episodes, proof-driven, healing-minded, every week. Thank you for listening, for choosing calm, and for knocking.